everybody, I'm Beebs Kelley. Welcome back to another video. Thank you so much for being here with me. Today is going to be a lot of fun. We're taking a look back at some wedding dresses that we have never covered on this channel before, but we're also taking a look at your polls. The response to the Meghan Markle wedding discussion was huge, and you guys have a lot of opinions on it. So it's time to tally them up and see what you guys think would have made that dress a little bit better. So many people saw a connection between Princess Angela of Liechtenstein's dress and Meghan Markle's dress. Now I see some similarities too, especially with that unique neckline that she had, but obviously Meghan Markle's neckline was a lot more dramatic. But overall, like the sleeve length and the very simple design and the bouquet color all do kind of have similarities. But that's not the only dress that seems to look a little bit similar. Some other famous wedding dresses and how they compare to Meghan Markle's in their similarities of this sort of modern and simplistic approach. But first, let's take a look at what you guys think. Do you see a connection between the Meg's wedding dress and that of Princess Angela of Liechtenstein? 76% of you guys thought it was beyond inspired, that Meg totally copied Angela's dress. 17% thought it was inspired and just had some similarities, and only 5% found no connection or thought it was not inspired by Angela's dress at all. I personally would probably say that I think it's just inspired and had some similarities, simply because there were enough differences, and Princess Angela's dress is not one that has like bajillions of pictures out there. In fact, it's been kind of hard for me to find good pictures of her dress in its entirety. So I would say, if I were voting on this poll, I would say inspired / some similarities. I would be with the 17%, not the majority. But I totally understand why you guys put it as copied, because it really does look that way. And as many of you pointed out in the comments, the significance of Angela being one of the first African-American women to marry into a European royal family has that sort of connection with Meghan Markle that I could see taking it beyond just inspired. Another dress that had some similarities and had a very simple approach was Crown Princess Victoria. Now this dress's fabric seems to be a lot softer in nature and far less wrinkly than Meghan Markle's, but it still has that really simple, sleek design. When you look at it, there's no like embroidery or anything like that to add texture to the dress. It is just that beautiful satiny fabric, and it is a gorgeous dress. It's got that pure white color, and it's got that simple silhouette, as well as a wide or off-the-shoulder neckline. So this off-the-shoulder neckline that Crown Princess Victoria has this sort of fold across the top and a little bit of a sleeve. I think that little bit of a sleeve is a really nice touch rather than having it be just off the shoulder. And then there's a waistband sort of situation happening. Now this does accentuate her figure nicely. However, it's not my absolute favorite. It's like almost kind of look a little bit chunky, that big, huge, thick waistband, but it's not super imposing, and it's made of the same fabric as everything else. And overall, I really like this dress. The tiara is of course a huge focal point of this, and she had a veil, but she also had a big train off the back of her dress. I think that the train really helped incorporate the veil kind of more seamlessly, because the veil laid over the beginning of the train, but the train is longer than the veil. I think this one did a better job of incorporating the veil than Meghan Markle's, and I also like that across the shoulders here, it has this sort of V shape in the back while it's straight across the front. I think that's also very, very flattering. I thought that Meghan Markle should have added some sort of a V-neck type situation, something to break up that really straight, harsh line that just kind of accentuated the boxier shoulders. As a sign of equality, according to Swedish custom, the bride and groom must walk down the aisle together. However, Victoria demanded to have her father walk her down the aisle at her wedding, which is customary in many modern cultures. But Swedish media reported this at the time of the bride wanting her father to give her away as property, and the Archbishop even released a statement. Being given away is a new phenomenon which occasionally occurs in the Church of Sweden. I usually advise against it, as our marriage ceremony is so clear on the subject of the spouse's equality. The couple know where I stand on this matter. The king was leading the heir to the nation's throne, to the altar, and to the man who has been accepted. Her wedding gown features an A-line skirt, an off-the-shoulder neckline, and a V-shaped back. It was made of Duchess silk satin in a cream color and fastened with silk-covered buttons in the back with a V-shaped opening where the rounded collar had been turned down all the way around. Victoria's waist was emphasized with a sash in the shape of a cummerbund, and it appears that the sash was perhaps detachable from the dress. They spent a lot of time throughout the day, so the short sleeves were ideal for staying modest in the church as well as for the warm June weather. The skirt itself had a brief train that was manageable for dancing at the reception, and she donned the customary Swedish wedding veil. The lace veil of Queen Sophia was originally worn in 1932, and Queen Sylvia wore it for her wedding in 1976. She donned a garment with a 5-meter train that was fastened at the waist, and the same gold tiara that Queen Sylvia wore to her wedding in 1976. What spectacular history. And I asked you guys what you thought about this in this poll. Which alternative dress here would you have chosen for Meghan? We have a V-neck line with draping and an A-line skirt, and this dress has the long sleeves similar to Meghan Markle's choice, and it has a very simple structure to it. There's no other embroideries or fabrics. It does have a scalloped edge, which I think would have helped to tie the veil in a little bit better. And across the waistline and chest area, the bust area, that draping, creating those nice diagonal lines, adds a lot of softness that Meghan Markle would have really benefited from when it comes to her silhouette. That option got 25%. But the winner of this contest was any dress that wasn't white or some sort of other option altogether. 55% of you felt strongly that she should have just done something completely different or something that wasn't white. That seems to be a really big sticking point for a lot of people. They really didn't understand why she went for something just so starkly white. Even just off-white, I think, would have been a nice compromise and wouldn't have been seen so harshly by the general public. And again, this wouldn't have been much of a question if they didn't get married in the church. But since they decided to marry in the church, and she was twice divorced, I think, it makes sense. You know, you want to respect the traditions of the place that you're in, and since she was marrying in the church, she should have chosen something at least off-white, like cream, ivory, something other than that stark white. So I agree with the 55% here, although I just absolutely love this V neckline draped sort of bigger skirt wedding dress for Meghan Markle. I just truly wish she would have chosen that instead. But let's see what else we have here. The boat neck, but still having all lace, nice slim skirt, was 13%. Now this is the dress that I think is most similar to the dress that Meghan Markle wore because it has the boat neck and it has the longer sleeves and it has a really simple slim silhouette. There's nothing, you know, no sort of big flare to the skirt or anything like that. It's a very streamlined dress, but it has lace all over. It has sheer lace across the sleeves and then it's a lace overlay everywhere else. This option certainly would have tied the veil in better for Meghan Markle, and it would have been easy to add like an ivory or an off-white or even a champagne color underneath the lace and let the lace still be white. So she could have had a compromise there in which she still incorporated white lace, but a different color for the dress underneath that would have shown through still to some degree. That could have been really, really pretty. But anyway, given that this one was the most similar to Meghan Markle's, I included it in the poll, but it only got 13%. But coming in at only 6% was a round neckline, incorporating some lace and just more skirt overall. This dress, I don't think, was quite as flattering for Meghan Markle's body type. It didn't have sleeves, and it was just a little bit more basic, as well as the skirt looking a little bit closer to Catherine, Princess of Wales's dress. So this one lost in the polls, but let's see what you guys had to say in the comments. This user said, I think she was trying for classic elegance, but missed the mark and got everything wrong. The whitest white, heavyweight fabric gown was ill-fitting, the veil too long and didn't go with the dress, the messy hair, etc. There's so much she could have done to be absolutely stunning. A good start would have been using a British designer. She was never into being integrated into the royal family at the very start. An ivory satin gown would have been timeless and lovely on her if it worked with her body type instead of against it. Why does she always seem to sabotage herself? It's completely true. Something of that nature would have been so much better. I truly think that something satiny and just completely off-white, champagne color, something like that, would have endeared her to the public so much more just by showing that degree of respect for the church, for the family, for the queen. And again, of course, I agree, British designer would have been huge. I also agree with this person who said that Meghan never would wear lace, a full skirt, or ivory because Catherine wore those. Meghan's gown was a statement against the classic bridal look, and its simplicity was kind of suitable since this was her second wedding. As such, this was her chance to make a grand statement about the fresh, exciting new designs second-time brides could wear. Camilla's gold outfit and her beautiful hat were brilliant choices and befitting of an older divorced woman. If Meghan had ventured into color and texture, it would have been such an iconic fashion moment. It was the stark white and the veil that sank Meghan's look, along with the dewy, barely there makeup and natural hair, as if she wanted to erase her age, maturity, and history, when it really just like she was pretending to be something she wasn't. I completely agree. This is true. It would have been so iconic and such a big deal and such a statement had she done something really unique in a beautiful way. I think she was trying to go for that, but it didn't come across as beautiful or special or fabulous. It came across as blah, meh, just boring and stiff. Unfortunate. Take a look at another dress that has some similarities to Meghan Markle's, but honestly, this one's quite different. Crown Princess Mary. This was a beautiful dress, especially from the waist up. I absolutely love the fit of this. Across the bodice and showing off that thin waistline of hers just looks spectacular. The paneling of the skirt here and the draping of the skirt is not my absolute favorite. I completely get where the designer was going with it, and it does have a beautiful effect. However, it's just not my favorite. I feel like it would be better if those folds and that draping was more just on the back half of the skirt and the front had something else going on, or just one piece of fabric across perhaps would have been nice, because it does just look a little bit divided across those front panels. However, I don't dislike it. I think it's very beautiful and very unique. I absolutely love how her train and her veil are well incorporated. This is another example of that Meghan just missed the mark on matching her veil to the dress in any way, shape, or form, which is part of what backs up the theories that are going around that perhaps Meghan Markle had a different dress that matched the veil a little better. Perhaps it was off-white, who knows? But then she switched to this backup dress last minute, and that was part of the reason why Queen Elizabeth looked less than pleased that day. That perhaps it was not the dress that she expected to see. But back to Crown Princess Mary. I really love this barely there off the shoulder look for her. It's very, very beautiful. And the sleeves, although they are a little bit wrinkled, the dress in general is made of a fabric that tends to get a little bit wrinkled and puckered. They are quite beautiful, and they have that not full length vibe. They're just past elbow length, it looks like. And it is a very beautiful wedding dress, although I have to disagree with those of you that said it was really similar to Meghan Markle's, because I'm just not seeing enough similarities here to say that it was one that perhaps inspired her. However, upon looking into these, I've found many royal brides who showed a bit of shoulder, had either a boat neck or just some sort of barely off the shoulder design. So I think that that part of it should be taken into account, that it's less of a new thing and less stepping outside the box that she had that wide boat neck, because it has been done quite a little bit amongst these brides. Crown Princess Mary of Denmark's wedding dress had her mother's wedding ring stitched into the lining of the dress close to her heart, as her mother had passed away before the wedding. She also had her bouquet, which contained eucalyptus to represent her Australian roots, back to Australia to be placed on her mother's grave. What a touching and beautiful tribute. This dress was designed by a Danish designer, pardon me if I pronounce it wrong, Juf Frank. It was made with an ivory Duchess satin with a beautiful mother of pearl sheen. The skirt contained an impressive 8 meters of Irish heirloom lace folded into panels opening from the hip. The choice of lace represented Frederick's family roots. It had originally been given to his great-grandmother, Crown Princess Margaret of Sweden. The 6-meter-long train was detachable, allowing her to convert her look post-ceremony, a trend that is still really popular today. And she paired her dress with Crown Princess Margaret of Sweden's veil, which had been passed down to the family, but Mary was the first in-law to ever wear it. It was attached to a tiara, which was a gift from her new mother and father-in-law. She is an absolutely beautiful bride. I think if Meghan Markle would have had a little bit more of those seams and detailing across the bodice and more flare to the skirt the way that Crown Princess Mary did, it would have helped her so much. Having more in that skirt, a little bit more volume, is exactly what she needed to balance her shoulders. So if she would have taken a note out of Crown Princess Mary's book, it would have worked out a lot better for her. Next, I asked you guys which of these alternatives or adjustments do you think could have saved Meghan's wedding dress? So I asked you guys if adding some lace either all over or just like on the top, for example, across the boat neck area, or adding a cowl style neckline, something a little softer and drapey across the front rather than a boat neck. Using an alternative fabric to the one that Meghan Markle did that was so stiff in its appearance, something like satin, for example, that was more drapey, or adding fullness to her skirt, or just changing the neckline to a V-neck. I asked you guys which of these options would be the best fix if we could just pick one thing to fix the dress, and 46% of you said fullness in the skirt and or a V-neck. Changing that neckline would have had such a huge impact to the dress. It would have taken away from the shoulders, broad shoulders look that she went for, and it would have balanced things out a lot more. Fullness in the skirt, even without changing the boat neck, would have also done the same thing as we just saw with Crown Princess Mary's dress as an example. Coming in second place, you guys chose an alternative fabric choice like satin. At 20% of you thought that. I completely agree. I think that the stiff fabric of Meghan Markle's dress was one of the biggest mistakes made. It literally looked like it was stiffly hanging there, almost like a piece of cardboard. There has been so many comments about the stiffness of that fabric and what it reminds you of. Coming in at 18%, just barely in third place, is adding some lace somewhere. I think a lot of people thought that adding some sort of lace across the top where the boat neck comes across, but there's lace like up here, perhaps even the lace completely covering her shoulders, would have been a nice adjustment to the dress and softened this area. I'm completely for adding something soft around the neckline of a bride. You want the attention up at your face. She has this gorgeous tiara on. It's your special day. You want your smile and everything to look lovely and romantic. I mean, a wedding is supposed to be romantic, right? So having something soft up here, I think, is essential in brides. Honestly, have this straight, harsh line of that wedding dress just had nothing soft. It brought nothing romantic to the look. It was just harsh, 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 harsh. 15% of you said a cowl style neckline. Now, I think that this would have been the easiest adjustment to make, leaving the rest of her dress alone. Just switching that boat neck to a cowl would have been the simplest way to adjust the dress and have a huge and dramatic impact. But of course, adding fullness to the skirt would have been almost just as easy. I mean, sticking some more volume in there would have made a big difference too. If you haven't voted on these yet, be sure to go back. It's on the community tab in my page. You can just scroll through and make sure you voted on them all. So before we get back to a couple of those royal brides, I would like to take a look at Nicola Peltz's wedding dress. She married Brooklyn Beckham like a year or two ago, and there was quite a little bit of drama surrounding their wedding, but she also had a very simple, modern wedding dress made. This has such a simple silhouette. It is so plain and sleek in the dress, but she has this huge and elaborate veil. And who else did we see do this same thing? Having a super plain, sleek wedding dress with a very elaborate and delicate veil? Meghan Markle. But there is a huge difference here. Nicola Peltz went for wide straps and a square neckline, but sleeveless. So she just has these straps off of this square neckline here. It's very, very beautifully done, very well made. This is a dress that has been tailored to perfection. But then she has lace opera gloves. These gloves come all the way up, they are all lace, and it ties into the wedding veil perfectly. Absolutely matches seamlessly and beautifully. While this isn't necessarily my personal favorite wedding look of all time, it is gorgeously done and fits together nicely. This is how you incorporate different types of textures in a look. She has no other textures on her dress. However, her train is nice and long in comparison to the veil. They match really, really nicely. And she brought those lacy opera gloves in that match that veil perfectly to frame her dress and tie it into the veil. If that were not there, this would not have worked the exact same way that Meghan Markle's dress did not work with the veil. As far as Nicola Peltz's wedding dress in general, it looks very, very beautiful, but I absolutely hate the platform shoes she's wearing. They're super weird. A really weird choice for a wedding dress. They're square-toed and platform and just odd. Why not wear something, I don't know, a little more delicate? with that wedding dress. I mean, I get it. She's like, you know, making a fashion statement, but I just don't like those shoes with this wedding dress. But otherwise, it's tied together really nicely. You can also see the train on these ladies' dresses that we've looked at so far more closely matches the veil length. Meghan's veil was absurdly long, and her train on her dress was not in comparison at all. It just didn't match and it just didn't work. As far as this specific dress for Nicola, it looks beautiful for her figure and her body type. She has got this slender, tall body type, so this is a really nice choice for her. I think that the straps don't look like they fit perfectly. It almost looks as if it's not meant to have straps, like it's meant to be strapless. So I wish that there would have been something tied in, or maybe like that they were tapered a little bit to just give a little bit more intention behind the straps, but otherwise it's a very beautiful gown, and again, tailored perfectly in its minimalistic approach. Clearly, she invested the time it takes to have it tailored to perfection and have it work perfectly. Because when you don't, and you have something that's so simple and so plain, then every little detail comes out. Also, clearly, it didn't have any wrinkles in it. I mean, in movement, there's wrinkles, but that's movement. That's not wrinkling of the fabric. Meghan's dress had wrinkles all over the place. So the choice of fabric clearly played into Nicola's working much better than Meghan's. Nicola was wearing Valentino haute couture, and Peltz's stylist, Leslie Fremar, says the traditional with a twist wedding gown is the most beautiful dress she's ever seen. Peltz's custom wedding look is the culmination of a year's worth of conversations with Valentino's creative directive team, 2 trips to the Rome headquarters, and 2 US fittings. The head seamstress even journeyed to Miami to make sure every detail was immaculate on the big day. They were cherry-picking elements from various sketches, fabrics, and embroideries to create Nicola's dream dress. What began as a highly intricate bridal look changed as soon as the bride tried it on. The simplicity of it was magnificent. We didn't have to overly detail the dress to accomplish the magnitude of it, so we ended up eliminating the embroidery. Instead, they added French lace on handmade gloves and an exquisite train that sits over the gown and decorates it like a work of art. Now, one more dress that I haven't taken a look at before is Crown Princess of the Netherlands, and she had a similar style or approach to her wedding dress as Meghan Markle did. Surprisingly. Now this I think was in the 60s. This has been a long time. But she did long sleeves, very, very plain, not too much volume in the skirt. It's a very simple approach, but it does not have the boat neck or the wide off the shoulder sort of situation. Her veil is much shorter, however, the train of her dress is very, very long. One of the things that made this dress work for her is the texture, and that's why I wanted to feature it in today's video. She has this sort of texture on her dress that's almost looking like lacy. It reminds me of a wedding cake almost, the intricate piping done on a wedding cake, the pattern on this wedding dress here. And it allows for those little flaws in the tailoring or wrinkling or bunching here and there to be camouflaged by that texture. So Meghan Markle choosing a fabric that was so simple but also stiff that caught a lot of wrinkles prevented no distraction from all those flaws. Having some sort of texture or shine or flowiness or softness to the texture of Meghan Markle's dress would have fixed the problem entirely. Because as you can see here, it looks completely lovely from a distance, but as you close in, you can see that there's a little bit of puckering here and there, a few flaws here and there, but at first that doesn't stand out to you due to that texture of the dress. It's absolutely beautiful and ingenious. However, Meghan Markle's being so blank, all those flaws stood out that much more. Her dress was made of fabric covered in embroidered daisies. The dress itself featured a scoop neckline, long sleeves, and a fitted bodice which gave way to a full-length, slim-line skirt. Margriet's train was attached to the shoulders of the gown and was again covered in daisy embellishments, while the bride carried a bouquet made entirely of, you guessed it, daisies, because Margriet means daisies as well as pearl. However, the flower had to compete with the pearls as a wedding motif. Margriet chose a very 60s tulle veil, a voluminous spray of material that finished just below her shoulders, and it was held in place by a family tiara made of diamonds but featuring 5 prongs topped with button pearls. Next, I asked you guys which material you think would have helped Meghan Markle's wedding dress the most. Meaning, if you could have added or substituted a material to the dress, either like changing and swapping out a material or adding a material on top, which do you think would have done the best job of changing her dress or making it better? Suggested tulle, satin, lace, or none. Leave it in the comments. And 25% of you chose none and left something in the comments. So we're going to take a look at those in a second. But 43% of you said lace. I completely agree, but a lot of you went against lace because it would have been too close to Catherine, Princess of Wales's wedding dress. Which I agree, but also lace is super popular for brides, so I don't see why Meghan would reject lace just on the account of it being Catherine, Princess of Wales's dress material of choice for parts of her dress, because her dress wasn't even all over lace. But anyway, 43% of you suggested lace, and I agree. I think that would have made a huge difference, even if just the sleeves were lace, if something was lace, or had some sort of lace across the top, or an overlay of lace, it would have helped a ton. Satin came in at 18%. That's kind of my personal favorite. I'm gravitating towards something more soft, something satiny, something drapey. Would have just looked really nice with her body type, added some of that softness and curve to her shape, and just been more delicate. It wasn't a delicate dress, you know? And 13% of you said tulle, which I also think would have been a nice choice. But let's see what you guys suggested in the comments, shall we? A final fitting and her ability to listen to the professional designer would have been invaluable. I completely agree with you. Lace would also be pretty, but I chose tulle for two reasons. One, not to emulate Catherine's dress with that beautiful lace that she used. I agree. And two, tulle would have given her dress more movement and body. This is true. The fact that it was so stiff walking down the aisle and whatnot was just bad. If it had that movement and swishiness of tulle, it would have been great for her figure. In fact, in Suits, her wedding dress had a big tulle skirt, and I reviewed it in my video. I will try to link it for you when I went over her Suits wardrobe. Organza would have improved the design. The silk she chose was thick and kind of heavy, which clashed with her small, sharp, even if broad, bone structure. A crisp, lightweight silk like organza would have been more cohesive with her build while also having movement and drape to add some light softness. I 100,000% agree. It also would have tied the veil in a lot better. But one thing everybody agrees on is that she at least needed more fittings. Next, we're going to take a look at Princess Margaret's dress. Now this came up because I was looking at Crown Princess Margaret of the Netherlands and thought, oh, I've never discussed Princess Margaret's wedding dress. Now her dress was simply beautiful. It has this very narrow V-neck with a ever so slightly high collar, slight puff in the upper part of the sleeves, but nice and fitted down through the rest. And it has this beautiful princess cut where it comes in lovely at her waist and then flares out to this big dramatic skirt. She also has on this huge and fabulous tiara and a beautiful veil. Now I love her wedding dress for her. It's not for everybody, but it is a beautiful dress. Her wedding dress is a very classic silhouette and a very, very classic choice for the time. The volume that it gave in that skirt was so dramatic and gorgeous. The rest of the dress stayed so simple. For her, the approach to the wedding dress was beautiful fabric, nice and simple, dramatic silhouette, which I really like. I feel like lately women have gravitated away from those more dramatic silhouettes and gone with more simple and sleek designs, but I think it's really fun and beautiful and would be great to see more brides go for those dramatic silhouettes where the outline of the dress is something just simply fabulous, voluminous, lots of gorgeous rich fabrics, but with a simpler fabric used, something more plain. I just think it's a beautiful effect. And if Meghan Markle would have done something a little bit more like that with a more dramatic flair to the skirt, even though the fabric was so simple, it would have been a beautiful classic option. Norman Hartnell was the designer of this bridal gown for Princess Margaret. It is elegant, it is simple, and it's a modern looking dress. She got married back in 1960, but this dress still has a modern feel to it even today, which is pretty amazing. This is something that can really only be done when you stay away from like these sorts of stiff or trendy looks, like how Princess Anne had this really high neck Victoriana gown, or Princess Stephanie of Monaco's had this like 70s boho look to her dress. Margaret's gown just kind of stays looking modern and fresh because of its simplicity, I think. Norman Hartnell also made Queen Elizabeth's wedding dress, as well as her coronation gown and this embellished fairy tale dress that she wore for her 19th birthday portrait. So he had been working with these ladies for quite some time, making some spectacular dresses. She asked for something that was unfussy and fitted because she was petite. Something too elaborate would overwhelm her frame, and she knew that. So she asked for a tailored bodice and waist, long sleeves, and a full-length voluminous skirt with a small train, nothing too dramatic or extreme. There were no embroidery or flowers or anything like that on the dress, no motifs. It was just plain silk organza, which makes this dress stand out even more versus those of the other royal brides. It was refreshingly modern and an instant hit among the fashion press at the time, who named it the simplest royal wedding gown in history, which is a beautiful thing if you think about it, because that silk organza fabric is so beautiful, and the silhouette that was created was so beautiful and dramatic. You didn't really need anything else. Now, although it was simple and elegant with her dress, her jewelry and her tiara was much, much more dramatic. She wore the Poltimore tiara, which I think is no longer around. I think that her family auctioned it off, or perhaps it's one of those that we just don't really know where it is. Now, that was a tiara that she had bought herself, which was a little unusual because it was tradition to borrow from the royal collection. But Princess Margaret was doing things her own way with this grand tiara, which has a graduated line of cushion-shaped and old-cut diamond clusters, alternating with a diamond-set scroll motif that is just undeniably regal. If you were around at the time, how did people react to it when it came out? Was it a big deal? Did it seem weird at the time? Either way, looking back on it now, I think it's absolutely beautiful, and I think that if Meghan would have taken some cues from that most simple wedding dress, she would have found that a little bit more volume to the skirt and a slightly more dramatic silhouette that had more balance to it would have been a lot more flattering. That's it for today's video today, you guys. I hope you enjoyed it. A recap of your polls. I will be incorporating some more poll results in an upcoming video because we have done so many of them recently and had such a great turnout on it. You guys seem to really enjoy them, and I enjoy seeing what you think. Thank you so much for being here with me today. I appreciate you so very much. I hope you have a very happy day ahead, and I will see you next time. Bye!